The story opens with breathtaking, yet terrifying, aerial shots of Monument Valley. The sheer, flat rock faces look incredibly beautiful, but in reality, they are treacherous, unforgiving, and completely lethal. We see a team of 5 climbers attempting to scale one of these vertical, sheer cliffs. 3 of these climbers are a family: Royce, an incredibly experienced, veteran mountaineer, his son, Peter, and his daughter, Annie. The remaining 2 climbers on the team are relatively inexperienced amateurs, and their lack of expertise is about to become the dark catalyst for a horrific tragedy. As the blistering sun beats down, the 5 climbers slowly make their ascent. The 2 amateurs, climbing slightly above Royce and his children, suddenly lose their balance. Their boots fail to grip the slippery rock face, and in the next terrifying second, they begin plummeting down the mountain. The most chilling part of this scenario: all 5 climbers are tethered together by a single rope. As the amateurs fall, the violent jolt of their combined weight violently rips the other 3 off the rock face, one by one. Now, the horrifying reality sets in. All 5 people are suspended in midair, dangling thousands of feet above the ground, held by a single, failing hook wedged into a tiny crevice at the top of the cliff. That rope and that hook were never designed to hold the dead weight of 5 human beings. The whipping wind and the immense pressure slowly weaken the tether. Before they can all fall together, the violent jerking snaps the upper portion of the rope. The 2 amateurs plummet into the deep abyss, falling to their deaths in the blink of an eye. Now, only Royce, Peter, and Annie remain on the rope. But the nightmare is far from over. Even with the reduced weight, the rope is slowly slipping out of the crevice. The metal hook is physically tearing out of the rock. Royce immediately realizes the grim mathematical truth. If the weight isn't reduced in the next few seconds, the hook will fail completely, and his 2 innocent children will die alongside him. Royce screams at his into a nearby crack to secure the rope and relieve the tension on the main hook. Annie uses every ounce of her strength. Her body is violently shaking, but her hands simply cannot reach the crack. Royce is dangling at the very bottom, with his son Peter directly above him. In that terrifying moment, Royce makes a decision that would shatter any human heart. He looks up at his son. His eyes are filled with pure paternal love and the desperate agony of a father trying to save his kids. He looks at Peter and commands, "Peter, take out your knife and cut my rope." Peter and Annie are completely paralyzed by the order. Annie screams in absolute terror, begging Peter not to do it. Peter's entire body is convulsing. How could he possibly take a knife and cut his own father loose? He knows that the second that blade slices the rope, his dad will drop thousands of feet to his death. But time is up. The hook shifts again. Finally, with tears streaming down his face and a shattered soul, Peter pulls his knife. He cuts the rope. Royce falls rapidly into the canyon, sacrificing his own life to save his children. The story jumps 3 years into the future. That horrific accident completely destroyed Peter's soul. The crushing guilt of essentially causing his father's death consumed him so deeply that he abandoned climbing forever. He now works as a wildlife photographer for National Geographic, desperate to stay as far away from the mountains as humanly possible. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. While shooting a documentary, Peter receives news that a massive, high-profile expedition is preparing to summit K2. K2 is widely known as the second highest, and easily the most lethal, mountain on the planet. Peter is deeply shocked to learn that his own sister, Annie, is part of this elite team. Annie has transformed into a world-famous mountaineer, driven by a relentless desire to fulfill their late father's unfinished dreams. Peter immediately travels to the base camp to see her. But when the 2 siblings finally meet after years apart, there are no hugs, no smiles, and no joy. There is only a suffocating, awkward silence and deep-seated resentment. The bitter truth is that Annie still blames Peter for their father's death. Peter learns that Annie is part of a 5-person summit team scheduled to hit the peak by Tuesday. The entire mission is funded and led by Elliot Vaughn, an arrogant, billionaire businessman who recently purchased a major airline. Elliot's master plan is a massive PR stunt. He wants to be standing on the summit of K2 at the exact moment his airline's inaugural flight passes directly overhead, proving his ultimate power to the world. The night before the final ascent, Elliot throws a lavish, arrogant party at base camp. Everyone is celebrating until a mysterious, rugged man named Wick steps out of the shadows. Wick is a legendary, highly experienced climber who knows every treacherous inch and unpredictable mood swing of K2. Wick walks straight up to Elliot and bluntly asks what his plan is if the weather turns bad. Elliot, blinded by his wealth and ego, scoffs. He claims they have the best meteorologist in the world and that the skies are completely clear. Wick delivers a chilling warning. The mountain doesn't care about your money, and when the storm hits, it will show no mercy. Elliot laughs it off. Wick simply walks away, packs his gear in the dead of night, and begins climbing K2 alone. The next morning, Elliot's 5-person team begins their ascent. Filled with adrenaline, they push higher and higher. But as they reach the infamous death zone at 26,000 feet, where the oxygen is incredibly thin, their radio cracks to life. Base camp urgently warns them that a massive, violent storm is rapidly approaching their exact coordinates. Tom, the highly experienced team leader, recognizes the death sentence. He immediately orders the team to turn back, but Elliot refuses. Obsessed with his airline promotion, he manipulates the situation. He argues that they are only an hour away from their target and the storm will likely change direction. Tom and Annie know this is a suicidal gamble, but under the immense pressure of Elliot's money and stubbornness, they are forced to push forward into the jaws of death. Down at base camp, Peter is watching through his binoculars in absolute agony. When he sees the team isn't turning back despite the warnings, panic sets in. The trauma of losing his father floods his mind. He grabs the radio, screaming at Tom that a catastrophic southern storm is about to hit them. But Elliot, using his silver tongue, dismisses Peter's warnings. Peter watches helplessly as his sister walks straight into a death trap. High on the mountain, Mother Nature unleashes her absolute fury. A blinding, violent blizzard engulfs the team. Pushing through the bone-chilling cold and massive snowdrifts, disaster strikes. A massive shelf of snow collapses directly beneath Annie's feet. She plummets into a terrifyingly deep, dark crevasse between two massive walls of ice. Because the team is tethered together, her fall begins dragging the others down with her. But in a stroke of sheer luck, just as she is dangling above the bottom of the pit, her rope violently snags on a jagged rock and snaps. Annie safely drops onto a ledge deep inside the crevasse. Above ground, the rest of the team is thrown into chaos by the storm. Suddenly, a massive avalanche roars down the mountain, a tidal wave of white death. It obliterates the team, instantly killing 2 members. Now, only 3 people are left alive: Annie, Elliot, and Tom. They are trapped at the bottom of the deep crevasse. Tons of snow seal the opening above them. They are buried alive in a frozen tomb. Down at base camp, all radio contact is lost. But Annie is smart. She knows Morse code, and she knows her brother Peter knows it too. Using a small rock and a metal tool, she taps out an SOS signal. The delicate vibrations are picked up by the sensitive equipment at base camp. Peter's heart races. His sister is alive. But the grim reality is, dropped on him by the experts. At that altitude, with sub-zero temperatures and rapidly depleting oxygen, they have a maximum of 36 hours to live. A rescue mission is deemed officially impossible. How do you find a needle in a haystack under tons of solid ice? But Peter refuses to let his sister die. He approaches the Pakistani military and secures highly volatile liquid nitroglycerin explosives. These bombs are incredibly dangerous. A slight jolt or direct sunlight could trigger a massive, deadly detonation. Elliot's company announces a massive $500,000 reward for anyone brave enough to join Peter's suicide mission. Driven by the money, a small team is assembled. But before they leave, Peter is advised that he absolutely needs one man, Wick. We learn Wick has a deeply tragic past. For years ago, his own wife, a famous guide, was lost in a brutal storm on this very mountain. Wick went insane trying to find her, losing his toes to frostbite, but he never found her body. He still haunts the mountain looking for her. Peter's helicopter tracks down Wick on the mountain. Initially, Wick refuses, knowing K2 right now is a total death wish. But when Peter reminds Wick of his past connection to his father, Royce, Wick's demeanor changes. He agrees, but on his terms. He takes command, stating, "This is a rescue mission, not a PR stunt. Every step we take is my call." Meanwhile, inside the icy tomb, the situation is rapidly deteriorating. The cold is freezing their blood, and the lack of oxygen is causing Tom's lungs to violently fail. They have a single emergency medical kit containing dexamethasone, a life-saving steroid. Elliot, proving to be a complete sociopath, refuses to share the medicine. He wants Tom to die quickly so he can hoard the remaining doses for himself and survive longer. But Annie's compassion shines through. While Elliot isn't looking, she sneaks her own dose of the medicine and injects Tom. When Elliot finds out, he goes absolutely ballistic, screaming at Annie as they slowly freeze to death. Outside, Peter and Wick's rescue team is pushing through hell, carrying the highly unstable nitroglycerin like fragile glass. But the mountain is unforgiving. One of the explosive canisters develops a leak. The moment the morning sun hits the volatile liquid, a massive, earth-shattering explosion rips through the mountain, instantly incinerating 2 of the rescue team members. The shockwave from the blast shifts thousands of tons of ancient ice. As Wick investigates the blast zone, he sees a frozen hand protruding from the snow. He digs closer, and a blood-curdling scream escapes his lungs. It's his wife. The mountain finally gave her back after 4 years, her body perfectly preserved in the ice. Wick gently takes his wedding ring off her frozen finger and puts it on his necklace. But right next to her body, Peter spots a small, weather-beaten medical box. Wick opens it, and the horrifying truth hits him like a freight train. For years ago, Elliot Vaughn was climbing with Wick's wife. To ensure his own survival, Elliot stole all of her dexamethasone, abandoning her in the storm to suffocate and die alone. Elliot is a murderer. Wick's grief instantly transforms into a burning, uncontrollable rage. He charges up the mountain toward the crevasse, hungry for vengeance. Inside the cave, night falls, and Annie is fading fast. She gets on the radio and weakly begs Peter to turn back, saying none of them will survive the night. Peter cries, begging her to hold on. That same night, Elliot crosses the ultimate line of evil. While Annie is unconscious, Elliot creeps over to the struggling Tom. He takes an empty syringe and violently injects a massive air bubble directly into Tom's veins. The air embolism hits Tom's heart, suffocating him in seconds. When Annie wakes up, she finds Tom's lifeless body. She sees the empty syringe and realizes the terrifying truth. Elliot murdered Tom in cold blood to save the medicine for himself. Just as all hope seems lost, a sliver of light pierces the roof of the ice cave. Peter and Wick have arrived. With extreme precision, they set their final nitroglycerin charge and blow a hole into the cavern. Peter rappels down the rope, grabbing his weakened sister, preparing to hoist her to safety. But then, Wick locks eyes with Elliot. Wick has the perfect opportunity to kill the man who murdered his wife. But Wick is a true climber with honor. Despite his burning hatred, he straps Elliot to the rescue rope. But K2 isn't done with them. As they are being pulled up, the entire ice shelf they are standing on violently collapses. It's a terrifying case of history repeating itself. Peter is left clinging to the top of the ice wall. Dangling on the rope below him are Annie, Wick, and Elliot. The loose snow and ice can't hold the anchor. The hook is ripping out. Wick instantly analyzes the physics. The rope cannot hold all of them. If he does nothing, Peter and Annie will fall to their deaths. Wick looks up at Peter. A strange, peaceful calm washes over Wick's face. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out his knife. Peter screams, "No, Wick, don't do it." But Wick simply smiles. He slashes the rope. Wick and Elliot plummet together into the dark, bottomless abyss, vanishing forever. Wick didn't just avenge his wife's murder. He made the ultimate sacrifice to give Peter and Annie a second chance at life. As the morning sun breaks over the Himalayas, Peter safely guides his sister back into base camp. The years of bitter hatred in Annie's eyes are completely gone, replaced by profound love and respect. She pulls her brother into a tight embrace, finally forgiving him for the past. "If Dad were here," she whispers, "he would be incredibly proud of you." Peter builds a beautiful stone, but the mountain never truly lets anyone go. Even as Peter and Annie walk away, the massive shadow of K2 looms behind them, a silent, frozen graveyard that holds the bodies of their father, Wick, and countless others who dared to challenge its peak. The trauma of what happened up there in the death zone will undoubtedly haunt them for the rest of their lives. Yet, through the unimaginable pain and the brutal sacrifices, they found something the mountain couldn't freeze: forgiveness. Wick's final smile before cutting his own rope wasn't just a tragic surrender. It was a profound, beautiful statement. It proved that human compassion can triumph over the darkest cruelty, even at 26,000 feet. The vertical limit pushes humanity to its absolute breaking point, stripping away everything until only our true nature remains.